this job, but I think I really want to make a commitment to myself that I'll work here for 4 or 5 years and then I'll quit and I'll do some travel. And I actually did do that. I had a really great 4 years at Amazon as a software engineer. And then I left. I was kind of burnt out. I lived in Havana, Cuba, Medellin, Colombia, Oaxaca, Mexico, had this really amazing adventure. And during that time had a really great idea. And the idea, I would not call it a startup. We could call it a side project. I would have called it maybe a project. And the idea came because I was learning Spanish, and I was meeting people who lived in these Spanish-speaking countries, and all they wanted to do was learn English. And the idea was okay, let's create a space where these people can meet together online. And I felt really energized about this because I had gone here to Waterloo, I knew how to code. I had worked at Amazon on a couple of really cool projects, but I actually did not know how to do every single part of a website and put it online and actually do all that stuff. And I felt like I should be able to do this. This actually seems interesting to do every single part of it, the database and launching it and the URL. I've never done all those things, even though I've coded hard things before. So it was really fun, and I created this experience. It's called Lenguajero. I worked on it for about a year. People really did use it. Maybe at its peak it had 10,000 users. So 10,000 people actually really liked it. But I made all these mistakes. And one of the mistakes, I have no regrets about this entire experience. I think there are great examples like Duolingo where they've crushed it, but compared to there were just not a lot of dollars. I think at its peak it made $140 in a month. And so it was not really going that well. People were using it. Actually was moved back to Canada from that trip with my husband and was pregnant. Was doing contract coding for a startup in San Francisco and making some money. And then I had the idea for Babylist. And a lot of my motivation for really wanting to do this, and I would have only called it a project then too, this new project. I wanted to do all these things better than I had done with this first project. I just felt I had gotten so many things wrong. This book had come out to all of, I don't know, you guys should all read it. Maybe it's just a classic now, but at the time it just felt revolutionary to me. It's called The Lean Startup. And it just is a philosophy for minimal viable product and how to learn as you're putting something out there in the world. And so I read this book towards the end of this kind of failed language learning startup. And I was oh, I want to do this in a different and better way. And I want to do it on Ruby on Rails, which was, I had worked in Ruby on Rails, but I was just it'll be fun, maybe I'll add it to my resume. And so I knew exactly what I wanted to build, and I was I think I could probably build that in a week. That was not true. I think it took me maybe a month or two. And I partnered with I met a designer online on an online forum. She was a student in the Philippines, and I did everything else. So she did the design, I did all the coding, I did all the customer support, I emailed blogs to say I'm going to be launching this better baby registry. Together we actually came up with the name Babylist. It wasn't babylist.com, it was BABYLI.st. That was the domain. What else? It was so it was building this first version, trying to really keep it minimal viable product. So the day it launched, you actually couldn't give a gift. I was I'll build that when I actually have someone who could be given a gift. And launched it. It was in February 2011, a couple weeks before actually having my son. And then it was just slow and steady. A couple blogs did write about it. People did sign up pretty slowly. And really, I said that with the language learning site, it made $140 in its maximum month ever. This made up about $140 in its second month. And so it's just really clear, oh, as more people use this, it will make more money. And kind of at the 1 year mark, I had really been I want to be home with my baby. And if Babylist is making $3,000 a month, I think this, like, there could really be something here. It's more than a project. I should go to it full-time rather than going and getting a full-time job. So that was like a decision kind of through that whole year. I was working like an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, and then went to it kind of full-time at that year mark. There was kind of like another inflection about a year later. Moved from Vancouver to the Bay Area, and I applied to an accelerator program. And so that's like a startup accelerator program, like Y Combinator is a really popular one. I was in the 500 startups one. It was fantastic. And so it was kind of this place where I was with like other young companies, pitched for the first time, and really out of that had this like very like big decision to make, and it felt really hard, which is, do I want to raise money and hire employees, or do I want to keep doing what I'm doing? Like kind of where I do all of the things, and it was actually like a pretty tough decision, and I eventually decided that I would raise money, I would hire people. My framing was like, even if it fails and like this is really like all the wrong decision, I'll probably learn more going down this path than just keep like doing what I'm doing. So really like hired those first team members, and then it was like kind of like ... like 10 years passed. But like every year I have this like new, different, hard job where I'm like trying to kind of figure out this next stage. I wanted to tie, so this is like a hard economy. Are a lot of you guys in co-op? And is co-op like hard right now? Like, or is it? It is, okay. So I went to Waterloo 20 years ago, and I was in the co-op program. I did not get a co-op my first co-op. I ended up like actually being here at school for 4 months, and then literally moved back home to like my childhood bedroom, and it felt like failure. Got a minimum wage job, like checking income tax returns, which actually led into my first real co-op, which was like software testing. And then like co-ops got better and better. I also, when I started at Waterloo in computer science, I did not know how to code. And is CS 135, would that, or 130? Like that would have been the class. I don't know what that class is like now. I think I did pretty well in high school. I'm sure all of you guys have done well in high school. And I was like completely unprepared for like what it took to do well in college, which was like probably like trying and studying. Like I just did not have those skills. I had like gotten away with like not doing that. Did like pretty poorly my first semester. And like I think I didn't know how to code, and the thing I actually tie it to is like I thought that coding could be like studying for a test where like it's the night before it's due, I'm just gonna like write the things like and it'll compile and work, and like that'll be that, which is not what coding is. It's like building, it's debugging, it's like being creative and iterative, it's like actually creating something. But also like I like did pretty poorly my first semester, and then came back kind of after that, like I'd say I'm speaking only to myself, like living in my childhood bedroom. All my friends were still at college, and then like coming back for my 1B semester. And like I worked harder, and I like tried to like really learn how to do well in this environment. And I learned to code by like my second and third year. I tried really hard. It's like I was able to figure things out. I think the thing I kind of wanted to tie that to is like figuring things out and like building and learning is like the thing it takes to actually run a company and like start a company. Like it's an iterative process. There's like a ton of failure. All you're trying to do is like figure out how to do something you have never done before, or you are currently doing like quite poorly. And so like there's a list of 500 things. It's like reading a P&L statement, launching Facebook ads, SEO, pitching your company like this, being on a podcast, signing a lease, like how to get a site up on AWS. What do you do when your site goes down and you have to debug it? Like there's 500 of those things. And like, just like what you're doing right now, like when times are challenging, like you have to figure it out, like you figure it out. And it is so much more motivating to do that for a real project than to just do it theoretically. And so if like there is a project, maybe it's not gonna be your final project, it's not your like $1 billion business, but like if you're actually like trying to build something and then you listen to a podcast or read a blog post or a tweet storm about like one of those things I mentioned or one of those 500 things, you get to like apply it to your own project, which is like fun. You can try it out. You can think about it actually in like a more critical way. So I actually really tie, I didn't, when I was 16, I didn't think I was gonna be a CEO. I didn't feel like, I was not particularly entrepreneurial. I didn't like this was my path, but I do think I had this like skill set of like being able to like really trust myself to like figure things out. Okay, so that's where I'm gonna stop, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
First question for you. What was the biggest mindset shift that you had from university to where you are now?
Oh, that's a great question. I think in university, it's really clear, like, what is it? Like you think like you're literally graded. Like you have a choice of classes. Like it's really clear what success and failure look like, right? And so like you can kind of like hack the system, work really hard so you're successful and you get good grades. And I do think it's like, that's a really big mindset shift when you're actually like in your career, because you actually could be like on the wrong path, like just trying to like get the next step ahead. Like you might really need to meander. It's a lot less clear maybe like what success is. I'm like at this point, it's been 20 years, so I'm literally you guys in 20 years. Like I'm not special, I'm literally you guys in 20 years. And I look at my peers in university, and I look at like the paths everyone's career took, and you would have never guessed it. You would have never guessed it for even a single person where their career actually went. 20 years ago, the technologies everyone is working in have completely changed. Like there were no mobile phones back then, there was no machine learning back then, like completely changed. And then like the paths people have taken, I would just say like were unimaginable. And so I think tying it to like a mindset shift, it's like your first job, your first 5 years in industry are not going to determine like your first 20. In my first job, I remember like being really like, do I want to be on an IC path or a manager path? And that was like my angsty question. But I could never see that there were like actually steps beyond that. Or even steps that maybe aren't beyond that, but are like totally like over here, because like that would be actually like more fulfilling.
Do you consider your company to be more focused on the luxury side, or you're trying to be just include as much as possible? And also, if you're trying to appeal to everyone and be a general company, why are you opening your first store in Beverly Hills?
Oh, those are very good questions. We definitely consider ourselves mass. So our goal is that we are serving like kind of like every income level of people, as long as they're going through this life stage of welcome to baby. So we do that actually in like really amazing ways. Like when you read our content, if you're looking at like crib mattresses or strollers, there's always a lower price option, because people who have like less money to spend are still great parents. So that's like my first answer. Second answer is a little bit hokey, which is like, you're gonna open up this showroom in Beverly Hills. We decided to open up a showroom in like the LA area, and actually had 2 spaces before this space that were not in Beverly Hills that fell through. So space is gonna be gorgeous, but it is in Beverly Hills. I was just there and I was like, oh yeah, this is a scene. Yeah. The space itself, we're gonna do a lot of like TikTok creation and influencers and celebrities. It's in a great location for that, so the location matters a little bit less for like that digital experience.
I have one question here.
Yeah.
So when you first started, how you dealt with the competition?
So how did I deal with the competition? When I first started, it was like really clear, like we were nothing. Nobody was using us. People were using these other solutions that were like so much bigger, like 1 million times bigger. And so I didn't even think about the competition, just to be like, here's who we are. Please, please, please try us. And our differentiator really was it works across retailers. Like every other registry is single retailer. But if you want to add things from like many retailers or not manage many lists, use Babylist. So we kind of had a clear, here's who we are. Over the years, we've gotten a lot bigger. And we probably only have 3 competitors of any note. I think we really, I actually worry much more about our team's ability to execute than I worry about like what competitors are doing. Kind of over the years, something that's been really interesting, we had like some startup competitors who kind of like came and then like after a couple of years like failed. So like doing it over 12 years, like you just see a lot. There was like one company that was like a direct competitor, and their founder was like in town, and I was like, hey, let's like get a drink. And so we were like very competitive, and like there was like, I wouldn't say animosity, but like they were like a direct competitor, but we actually like started a friendship, and like that's lasted like many years. Another competitor, I feel like I had this like really big lesson where she got a ton of press. Like New York Times, Vogue magazine, no one would talk about Babylist, but they were talking about like her company that was like directly doing what we did. But I knew no one was actually using her service. And I knew we were like actually figuring out how to grow. And so during that time it was like maybe press like doesn't matter that much. And like I'd way rather be us than actually be her. Like it would be very difficult, I think, to get press that's saying you're doing a great job, but like no one's really using your service. So it's like some thoughts on competitors.
You did better through, sorry, follow-up question.
Yeah.
You did better through, what was your strategy? What strategy you followed so that in the marketplace your presence were much more brighter than the others?
I think our strategy, I think our brand matters a lot. And so I think in our case, like our brand like is that strategy. If you kind of look at like who are our competitors, it's like Amazon and Target, and then there's like one other baby retailer, Bye Bye Baby. And I would say with Amazon and Target, like how am I gonna compete? I can't compete on price, I can't compete on shipping. But I can compete on you are having a baby and like I see you want to be on the site every single day, you're going through this experience and like we want to go through that experience, like that's like brand. And then with Bye Bye Baby, I think if you really say like it's us saying we're this modern brand, we're the brand for like, we just have like this different brand voice. So like that's actually, it's like, it feels squishy, but it's not, and it feels squishy as a strategy, but it's not.
This side, Natalie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie. My question is, how do you interpret failure, especially with your first project? You wouldn't say fully commercialized. How has that affected you starting Babylist? And for current students or aspiring founders, how should they interpret the risk of failure and commitment? Like, let's say they're currently a CS student too, but they have a project that could be funded. Should they take venture capital and at the risk of like dropping out to pursue full idea? What should they do if they have this kind of drive, but they don't know what to optimize for? Is it coming to school and staying in school to learn, or is it actually trying out in the real world?
Do you want me to answer the second question? Not the first. Okay, your first question was, how do you think about failure? I've failed a lot, and I've succeeded a lot, and I couldn't have succeeded without failing. And failing is really painful, and it hurts. And like you feel bad, and you cry. And like all of those things are true, but like it comes from like risking, and it comes from like caring about something. And I would just say like that's life, and that's what having a big career is gonna look like, and that's what probably having a big life is gonna look like, right? So like failure, like it's like I just say like you're emotionally gonna go through failure in your life. Like you're gonna not get that job, you might get fired, like you might fire someone else, like you I failed, I've cried, like so that's like failure. I can talk more about failure. You're saying I have this really big decision. Should I drop out of school and start a company?
My thing is, so basically in high school, me and some friends, we were really into entrepreneurship, and we each had different kind of opportunities to like commit to it full time. For some people, they got offered a few million to drop out and actually pursue
From like from VC.
Yeah, from actual VCs, and I got that debt financing options, which I didn't take in school. And for them, they took it, and 2 years later, I don't think it went anywhere for them. But I'm not sure how do you interpret, like if you're in uni now, you know that your engineering skill sets are not as good as it could be if you were to pursue like a sweet full time, maybe you'd be more ready if you were to start a company then. So if you're in school but you're really passionate, should you stay in school or should you like risk commitment if you want a chance to?
I can only give you advice. I can't answer the question of like which is the thing I would say. I'm just gonna like. I'm you 20 years later, you are gonna watch people's paths meander. I have friends, they were in like an initial Y Combinator batch, and they had a company, there was 3 of them who co-founded it. And this company worked on it for like 2, 3, 4 years, and it like didn't really make it, and they were kind of in a situation where like one of the co-founders needed to leave, like kind of because like this company can't support all of us. So that co-founder left, joined a small company called FriendFeed as their like 6th employee. That company was then like acquired by Facebook, and like just like the paths people take, I would say like through failure is just like it's life. You can't optimize for this year. Like startup will go badly or it'll go well. School probably will go well if it's like a good investment. Maybe like there's something around like making commitments to yourself. Like if you love entrepreneurship, let's say you do take a job like at Facebook or Babylist or somewhere like that. You can make a commitment to yourself where you're like, I think I'm gonna do this for 4 years. I really wanna learn A, B, C, D, and E. I wanna like learn like other things too, but that I think I actually should quit and really challenge myself to like start that company I really wanna start at. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And I saw the website from the Babylist and saw the product. And after people buying those products, they give the review. How does the company will be deal with that bad review? For example, there's a website that's showing the zipper immediately broken after the washing.
Yeah.
So the company will be like considered about that to check another product by people who support that work.
Yeah, I think you're saying like for reviews, what do we do about like bad reviews?
Yeah.
Legally, you can't actually suppress bad reviews. So at least in the United States, like the Federal Trade Commission really wants people to trust reviews. And so I think, well, not just because of that, it's like we want to be helpful to our users. And so I think we're like quite agnostic and are just the platform for reviews. I haven't thought, I think that's like, is that a good answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Good question.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you are the founder, not co-founder of Babylist, right? How has your experience been, like, as the sole founder? Do you kind of wish that, like, if you could have gone back, done it all again, that you would have been a co-founder, or would you have kept on with this path? Like, I've heard that sometimes VCs prefer co-founders over a founder. Have you found that it's, like, hindered you in any way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think actually being a like solo founder, and so it was just me, was like very difficult at the beginning. I'd say not the very beginning. It was actually like it's great to like not have to check in with someone and kind of do that first version of the site. But kind of that 2-year period when I was in 500 startups, I had like a 2-year-old at home, and I found it like more difficult to be in that program being like a solo founder than like being a mom. Like being a solo founder in that program, they're like, you have to be spending 40 hours a week pitching investors. You also need to be like spending 40 hours a week on like your product experience. Like you'd be like, I'm only one human being and I have actual customers and real customer service and I need to hire people, like how do I do it all? That's probably the time period where I felt it the most. But I would say like as time goes on, and what really defines my role now is like, I get to work with people who are like people I would actually work for. Like they're so good and they're so good at what they do and I have so much respect for them. I think in terms of like what VCs are looking for when they look for a co-founder, they actually are looking to see if you could convince someone to work full-time on your idea. Like that actually is a proof point that it's not just you. Like you were actually to get someone else to say like, oh, I would really commit to this. I think probably if you were going to be like, what are the 3 things? It's like probably having a great co-founder is the best, where a great co-founder is like, they can scale with you and with the company and you are really aligned in like values and expectations and you both you work together. Probably in the middle is like being a solo founder. And then I think actually most co-founder relationships are like kind of difficult. So I know a lot of like CEOs and co-founders where this relationship is actually like quite hard and ends with someone leaving the company in a pretty painful way. So if you are gonna have a co-founder, it's really important up front to like actually have hard conversations. Like, hey, if someone offered us $1 million for this business, would we take it? Would you take it? And like there's a way to like legally structure things so you don't start 50-50. You actually say we're both like every month we're both gonna get a certain percentage of the company. So if someone stops working with you, then like they won't have half the company. You should plan those relationships for the worst case, not the best case. Yeah.
Hi Natalie, thank you for the talk. You were speaking about both your projects, and you spoke about how your second project grew faster than the first and made more money faster than the first one. You said it's because more people wanted to use your second product than your first. So do you have any tips for how to identify products that people would actually use or would want to use without actually having to build and launch the products?
I don't think I have personal advice, but there's like a lot of advice out there about that. I think that's called like customer development, right? Are you aware of customer development or like, okay, that's what you're gonna Google, customer development, which is literally a discipline that's trying to answer that question. I think that there are ways to like show someone a prototype. There are ways to ask a question where someone's not just gonna be like, I like you, of course I would use it. Like you want them to really tell you if they would or not. I feel like with both projects, let's call like both of them projects like Babylist at the beginning, people actually use both of them. I think though, when it comes to like product market fit, a product that like people really care about and is working, and I'd say also if you're not gonna raise venture capital, like you need a business that's gonna make money. And it, like all of these things are very true with Babylist. So Google will serve you a better answer than I could ever give.
I just have a question regarding, you mentioned you had 2 direct startup competitors, and they're not here right now, but you're here. So you mentioned the one who she got all the press, and the one you kind of had like a drink with. He's all over. What specifically did they do wrong that they're not here, and what did you do right, or what did you avoid doing wrong? Or what specifically in these 2 cases did they do right?
No one's ever asked me that question before, and I'm like really excited to think about it and answer you. Okay, with both of them, this is gonna be like my brand answer. I'm like, but no one would actually use that. Like I go and I'm like, would I ever send this site with that name and that look and feel to 50 people, like my friends and family, and it like never passed that test for me. Like I was like, I don't think I would like send out this as a registry. Like they kind of started as something else. And I'm like, people don't think about registry. They're not gonna send a blog as their registry. So for me, I actually had this like real product sense around it, like product management sense around it and design sense around it, that I actually would point to. So it might be like squishy where I'm like, brand is how we won, but it like, I actually think they had products that like people would not use as their baby registries. So maybe like did not have product market fit and I could smell it.
For both of them?
Yeah.
But if in every other way that you could think of, they executed well except for the product one, or maybe some other things issues.
I think they were like functionally fine. Yeah, I think they're functionally fine. I do think the answer is like I like picture the human, and I'm like, I know when people use Amazon and don't use Babylist. I totally get it. It makes a lot of sense. With these, I'd be like, oh, I just cannot picture someone using this and then sending it out to 50 people.
So like you mentioned that they pivoted to your area. So like maybe like they were like fast follow, like copying you, and like so they didn't really have the strong intuition for it because they just copied you.
Yeah, maybe. I think this actually happened a third time. I think one of them probably did copy us. I think another one maybe did not copy us. There's a third company totally ripped us off. And they were like an app for pregnancy. And I was just like, no one is gonna send out the app for pregnancy for their baby registry. Like this, I'm not worried about this at all. Like I would just be like, and that similarly like didn't ever take off. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, great talk, by the way. I had a question. So as a solo founder, you had to build a large team around you. You mentioned like 200 people. So
After 12 years.
Oh, yeah, well, still.
Yeah.
So my question is, what are you looking for in a new hiree, for example? And how can you make sure that your team is working well?
Yeah. Okay, so what do we look for when we're hiring people? I think a really big part of this is like we're remote. And so we actually are like, okay, if we're this remote company, who can join this company and be successful if they're literally sitting in their own living room, right?
Okay, yeah.
I would encourage everyone here to not work remote if you can, and you should go work in person, even if Babylist does not hire you. Like especially early in your career. So I think we look at people who are like self-starters, who have really high like ownership and accountability. They're like really like doing what they say they're going to do. Maybe they have a track record or real stories about how they have driven projects from like inception to completion and like really showed a lot of ownership. I have 2 team members here. What else do we look for?
That's pretty good. Agency came to mind.
Agency, so like being able to solve problems and like really ask for help.
Yeah.
And then how do I get the teams executing well and like working well? It definitely feels different when you're like getting stuff done versus not getting stuff done. Sometimes I thought the team was like not executing well, but really they were in some period before getting a lot of stuff done. I think like a lot of feelings, like you're like people are like, I need that team to do a thing, or like we all like could look at the work we get done and like be disappointed in it. Yeah. Good question. Maybe like B- answer.
Hi. Hey, I have a question. So after you felt like baby registry was an area that has a lot of dollars, like what were some concrete steps or research that you did to confirm that that was the case? It's feasible and profitable, and convince yourself to go into it, and like how did you like later on go into the business model that you determined that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as a project, it didn't feel like I needed to do that much upfront research. This was much more true 12 years ago than now. There's like this very standard business model. It's like called affiliate. And there are these like 5 third-party websites. You sign up as a publisher. There are all of these like retailers who are on there as advertisers, and you can just apply to their programs. And then you can take the piece of code that like represents that retailer, and you can put it on your site. And if someone clicks it and buys something, that site's going to keep track that the sale came from you, and you're going to get paid. So I knew, and maybe for my first business, about this business model, because with the first business we were like, someone's learning Spanish, we'll show them Spanish books at Amazon. So I was like aware of like this is a business model. And I actually, with like the lean startup idea, I was like, I'm not gonna really be signing up for any of these affiliate programs until I can see people are adding items from these stores. So I didn't do a ton of upfront work. And then it was like super iterative, where I'd just be like, oh, we're gonna apply to this one and this one, write the code that actually like updates the links to go through those third-party sites. So there wasn't a lot of upfront research. It did make sense to me that we were at point of purchase. Like, I think we've gotten a lot further than if we were like a blog, where there's just like, you have to make money a different way through advertisers if you're gonna be a media site. So the initial business model, it kind of made sense, like, and even with a couple of months, I could see, okay, like I can see from our numbers, $1,000 was driven to Amazon, or like there were like 4 strollers bought. I can see that we got 5% of that money, and so I can see that's $20. And so I can use my, I'll say imagination, but like I can use a spreadsheet or math that tells me if I had 1,000, if I sold 1,000 more strollers, it would be, you know, $5,000.
Yeah, so thanks for the talk. So like when I look at university today, we're mostly trained for like really technical jobs.
Yeah.
And we never are taught the business skills that you probably learned along the way. So is there anything we can do at this point in our lives to like learn those skills and set ourselves on that track, even if we don't have like amazing startup ideas?
That's such a good question. One thing I wanna actually, I might think about your answer more. I wanna give one answer. In today's world, being able to write well will like always serve you. Like being a great writer in your first role, being a great writer as an extremely technical person is gonna like accelerate your career. And there are like ways to learn how to be a good writer, right? Like you can use ChatGPT to be like a better writer. Like, you can be a better writer. So it's not a business skill, but like that's a soft skill probably that like really, really, really will serve you. What else outside of like technical skills will really serve you? I think this might be more true, like maybe I wouldn't say like do it now, but like as your career progresses, like understanding all those like high EQ things like empathy and communication and how to manage people, and all of those are like, there's so much there, it's infinite, and it also will like serve you. Like even if you're not managing people, like working with people are complicated. I'm not saying like you need to take like Psych 101 to like do well in business, but like when you're at your co-op and you're working with people and you're like, why is everyone acting the way they're acting? Like being able to really start to like figure that out and like grow that way, I think is like as helpful as growing technically.
Thank you.
You can go. I was wondering if you had any challenges you face as a female founder in a male-dominated space, especially where I'm considering many would consider the industry you're in to be more female-dominated, but like maybe a frivolous idea as opposed to some like concrete ideas if you face challenges and felt like you weren't good enough or something.
I love it. I think actually I was like, maybe it's like I was the person who had, when I was first starting Babylist, maybe like those first couple of years, and I still say this today, like I was only able to do this because I was like two things. I could code, and I was going through this experience like as a woman, that like, let's say like mostly women are the ones who go through it. And like kind of glibly, I was like, if more women coded, this would already exist. And if more men like did this experience, then like it would already exist. And so this is just such a good idea. The dollars are there, like it's mine for the taking. And so in that way, I think it's like really served me. Like it's been great. Like I love our user base. Like it's mostly women who use our product. So I think that's been like really pro. In terms of, but you're saying like as a woman founder, it's like, I don't really, I don't know that, I like wasn't, I think fundraising is really hard, like period. It's a really hard process. It like involves a ton of rejection. And I do think the numbers show that like men raise a ton more money than like women. But I like cannot point at all personally to say like because I was a woman in that room, like that's why. Like there's just all it is rejection and then one person saying yes. And so like I think I'm like not actually great at fundraising. And so I like kind of point to that first, where maybe similarly like it's something I can also like work to like figure out and get better at, and I do that. Even just like build a better business makes fundraising easier. And so I think it like I don't have like personal stories where it's like it's been particularly challenging, and I think in a lot of ways it's been like very beneficial.
Thanks for the talk. One more thing is that you mentioned that in university you weren't very geared towards entrepreneurship, but then you mentioned, and then you also said that 4 to 5 years down the line in the tech industry you quit and then you tried something. So what changed and what thinking changed that you want to challenge yourself in this fashion? Did you have a plan going into a big tech job, or was it like when you entered the tech job you're like, okay, no, I want to try entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think my framing was I'm going to do the tech job, and I want to have babies at some point. Like for me, I like have an age, and so working backwards, I really like to travel the world, and like so let's lay out the next 10 years of my life. I'm gonna like work hard. I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna travel, and then have kids. And so that was like actually the plan that I did. While I was traveling, I was like, oh, I kind of miss coding. And so for me, it was not about, I wish I was like doing entrepreneurship. It was actually like, it'd be really fun to like code and build something, like just going back to like building. And like, I think once though I started building, like then you were like, I'm gonna listen to these like startup podcasts and like, oh, I can apply that to the project. And like, I actually got like much more into it and really enjoyed maybe like the breadth of like everything that's like a part of entrepreneurship. I didn't have like a step that like maybe feel like where you're like, okay, now I'm doing it. I'm gonna quit my job today, tomorrow I'm gonna start on my startup, and it's like a huge risk. It kind of felt like, oh, I'm gonna spend like the next like 2 months coding the site, then I'm gonna really try to see if people will use it. Like it was all about like building like I won't call it a company, I'll say like the project.
Thanks.
Yes.
Hey Natalie, thanks a lot for the talk. My question is Babylist using any AI tools like ChatGPT? And if so, what tools and how are you using them?
Generative AI and ChatGPT are crazy. We've only been dabbling in it as like individuals. So like what it sounds like is someone's like, oh yeah, like ChatGPT really helped me with this job description that I'm like posting, or like ChatGPT helped with like a press release. We're gonna do an all company meeting that's like a little bit like, let's all break off in small groups and see if we can do something cool. I don't know if we have like a big strategy there or not, but I do think it can help like individuals with their jobs and productivity and like even like creativity in like new ways. I think this one.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for sharing your experience, and it's very better for me to be the last question. So I was thinking with regard, because people saying like it will be like very difficult for someone to make the first step. Right? So I was wondering like how long it takes you from like say a solo founder to how second person with company and then like 5 to 10 minutes.
I think the second person of the company happened in that accelerator program, so that was 2 years. And then out of the accelerator program, we raised $600,000. And so with that money, I think it was like hiring like 4 or 5 people. So that was like kind of the timeline for that like initial team.
Yeah. We'll take one more question here and then continue the conversation.
Great. You guys are asking like such like wonderful questions. You guys are such a really like a great audience.
Hi. I wanted to ask, so when you look back at kind of all the decisions and like crossroads in the world, is there like a particular decision you think that like if you made differently, like things would have turned out very different? Like is there like a crossroads?
Yeah. There are like so many.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind was I think this was like 4 or 5 years in, and it was like, okay, like Babylist is this baby registry. What should we do next? And it really was a crossroads. It was, okay, we're a registry. We should go into wedding registry and wish list. Like we're this technology, and we should be like white labeling this to retailers. Like that's what we are. Or it was, we're a company. We attract like women when they're pregnant and like people when they're having a baby. And so we should be doing like more and more and more things for like this audience. So with that crossroad, it was a big decision. I was like talking to kind of experts in the wedding space and learning about that. But we really clearly made the decision that like it was actually about our audience, and that's what made us special, like that trust and that brand, and that like that was how we were gonna grow the business.
Cool. Thank you so much, Natalie. It was really inspiring to hear all about your journey and have you answer our questions. We have a small token of our appreciation. For everyone else, like we mentioned before, in the other room there will be food and Natalie as well to answer any more questions you have. As well, on April 18th, we have day 2 of our research discovery days where we will be bringing in 2 math alumni to talk about their paths like Natalie talked about hers, and also have a workshop on entrepreneurship and innovative mindset. So be sure to check that out. Thank you. Thanks, guys.